get started with the all the topics and everything that we were talking about, maybe give us a brief overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Absolutely. So, first off, I'm Mitch. I'm mainly on X. You could find me at Mitch_BTC21 if you want to get in touch with me or follow, what I have going on. As for background on myself and kind of how I got into this, so I spent the last 12 years in the corporate world, primarily in New York City, starting my career at NASDAQ, and during that time was working mostly in the field of investor relations, doing corporate sales, working with CEOs, CFOs, heads of IR of NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange listed companies. And I first got, since that point, I've exited that world a few months ago, and now I'm dedicating myself to the Bitcoin space. But during that time, I first became aware of Bitcoin. I was finishing up college. This had to have been I believe this is in 2013. And I heard someone mention it. And back then it was like, I wasn't involved in this, but you'd hear the Peter McCormack type stories. Like someone might try to buy drugs with it or do something, like illicit with it back in like the early days of Bitcoin, or someone had some in their account and it, went up crazy in price and then crashed down. And you hear these things, but never really thought anything of it. So yeah, that was in 2013. And it wasn't until again I got reintroduced to Bitcoin in 2017. And I was living in New York City. I had an apartment on Wall Street. I was working at One Liberty Plaza in downtown Manhattan at NASDAQ's headquarters. And in our office, we had TVs all throughout the office. They'd be on CNBC all day. And during that kind of run in 2017, we had in the summer, Bitcoin would pop on TV every now and then, and you'd see some of the crazy returns. Oh, it's $700, it's $1,000, it's $2,000, and during that time as well, you saw some just kind of horrific crashes that would happen along the way, just down 30% like that, like it's nothing. And I remember it like as that run was going on in 2017, I was also dealing with, since I'd work with issuers and usually at like the CFO level. And there were a lot of companies during that time, like small cap companies that were then like, issuing press releases about this stuff, or doing a name change of a company to XYZ crypto or XYZ blockchain company, or, saying that they're, they used to be a gold mining company. Now they're switching and bought Bitcoin mining rigs, and they're getting into that space. And, during that hype phase, anything that you put out there just starts pumping the stock. And then it was also the ICO boom at the time. And it just felt like really like the Wild West. And frankly, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about broader crypto and some of the actors in that space. But nonetheless, as Bitcoin was running, I remember asking one of my colleagues about it. I'm like, so what, like what is Bitcoin? And I remember their response. They're like, it's money. And I just went like, that's not going to work. Like, what do you mean it's money? And anyway, like it was, people were talking about it every day. The price continued to run. And as we get later in the year into December of 2017, we're now at $10,000 plus Bitcoin. And I remember us having coffee with one of my colleagues in the NASDAQ kind of lounge area we'd hang out. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to do it. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and download Coinbase on my phone, and went ahead and threw what would be it wasn't a huge amount, the equivalent of maybe like one paycheck, right? And just smash bought Bitcoin, literally top of the market, $17,000 Bitcoin. And I was like, but my mindset at the time was like, okay, it's going up like crazy. It'll hit, when it hits 20,000, I'll sell it and just, be out of it. And that's it. And, obviously, how the story goes from there. Maybe it tagged 20K for a second. And then it proceeded to go down nearly every single day, or at least what it felt like in 2018, bottoming about a year later at $3,000. But the significance of that, and I'll relate this later to why I think the ETFs are so important, is that it got it in my universe. So after buying it at 17K and then watching the price just drop, like I said, like every day, I was like, well, I'm not going to sell it, so I'll just let it sit in my account, and there it is. But But with that, now I'm at least aware of it. It's in my account. It's a part of my universe now. I'm at least thinking about it a little bit. Um, and during that time as well, I had got a Twitter account and started following some of the bigger thought leaders at that time, like Anthony Pompliano, like he was way bigger tweeting back then about Bitcoin than he is now. I mean, he talks about it a lot, but other guys like the Winklevoss twins and some of the guys that were bigger on Twitter during that maybe 2018, 2019, time period. So I was getting kind of peppered with Bitcoin information as to, why it should be taken seriously and some of the merits as to Bitcoin. During this time as well, I had a family member who has his entire career was a private wealth advisor. And unlike, I would say, most people in private wealth management who I mean, I could go on we could have a whole podcast about the TradFi wealth management industry and the current state of that. As I think most of these guys are just more or less going collecting funds and funneling them into different flavors of S&P 500 index funds and sitting back and collecting their fees, right? But this guy was really a hardcore gold bug, right? And every time we get together for a family event or whatever it might be, might talk on the phone. Every time it's just, oh, fiat is BS. The systems, built on a house of cards, and discussing all of the things that we as Bitcoiners know and gold bugs know as well. But solely focusing that on the gold vehicle and not the Bitcoin vehicle. So I was getting the sound money message from this person, and then also in combination with Twitter, hearing the other side of that from the Bitcoiner's perspective, and then trying to kind of blending the two, informing my own ideas and thoughts about the space and where this is ultimately going. But still during that time, I wasn't like actively buying gold or like buying Bitcoin in 2018, 2019, but just becoming more familiar with it. However, that was really beneficial because ultimately it gave me a good enough knowledge base, at least, to be prepared for 2020. So fast forward, we reach March of 2020. It's mid-March. Things had just started to get a little bit weird. Like if you remember mid-March, like, you might see someone, do you shake their hand? And it's like, do I, people were starting to get like, do you touch each other? Anyway, like I remember I was saying to my wife, it's like, you know what, if this ends up actually being something, some sort of pandemic or something, living in Manhattan in a small apartment has to be possibly the worst location in the world for one to be. Let's just pack up our bags. Let's get out of here just in case. Maybe this blows over. It's nothing. We'll come back. So anyway, we move out to Louisiana, where I ended up spending like 18 months during COVID. And anyway, but a week or two after that, we get to late March. You remember that time, stock market is just like limit down, circuit breakers, the world's coming to an end, everyone's freaking out. And if you remember at the time as well, they were starting to raise rates. And just like that, on a dime, they pivoted, drop rates to 0%, and just took a fire hose of money and just started spraying the problem with it, just throwing the kitchen sink at it. And I said, I remember it was late March and I was sitting out in the patio drinking a glass of wine. I'm like, you know what? Everything those gold guys and Bitcoin guys were talking about was absolutely correct. A crisis comes along, everything gets thrown out the window, and the debasement train just keeps on going. But this was the big one. This was the big one. And I remember sitting there and I was like, there could not be a better environment for why someone would want to own sound money to protect their savings. And then since that point, since late March, and that was actually the second time I bought Bitcoin. So I first bought it at the top at $17,000 Bitcoin in December 2017. The next time I bought it was, I believe it was the very beginning of April. It was like $7,000 Bitcoin. But I still spent pretty much the entirety of spring of 2020, summer 2020. I was just deep down the sound money rabbit hole. But both on the gold side and Bitcoin side. and thought that that was really the most significant thing and the trade that someone needs to be in. So as I was growing my knowledge base, reading everything I could, just, I'd go on, I mean, during that COVID time, I'd go on long walks through the neighborhood and just pounding hours of podcasts, guys like Max Kaiser and things like that in my ears. And um, one of the things that was really a turning point for me was in August of 2020. So, just with my background in the corporate side of things at NASDAQ, dealing with issuers, C-suite executives of public companies, when Michael Saylor came onto the scene, that is what really, really helped legitimize things for me. For someone of his background, of the way in which he articulates the message of it, for him to make as serious of a move that he did in analyze and him understanding, okay, we're facing an extreme amount of currency debasement. I need to protect not only myself, but my company, because I'm sitting in a ton of cash. What do I do? Do I buy real estate? Do I buy gold? Do I buy? And for him to ultimately end up on as Bitcoin as the preferred store of value asset that he says, okay, this is the one I'm going to go in on, really made an impact for me. And I think it did for a lot of people. So I've been following Saylor since August of 2020. And for me personally, that's really what drove home the distinction from me, because I used to bucket things in terms of sound money, and I thought gold, Bitcoin. And then at that point is where I really saw the distinction of, and I mean, obviously I heard this from people like Max Kaiser and stuff, but that's what really drove me over the edge to say, okay, no, there's something clearly different with Bitcoin to improve upon all of the inefficiencies with gold. And I remember that during that time as well. It's like, it's so funny. We're fast forward almost exactly 5 years from now. Even just the physicality debate was something that was going on then. Like, oh, well, with gold, you could touch it. You have it in your hand, it can't, nothing. And that is like the biggest flaw in gold, you know? And just, I mean, we could go down, we could have again, another podcast just on the differences of gold and Bitcoin and why Bitcoin's the superior engine. But for me, at least, the introduction into the gold world was really the first stepping stone to really helping understand, okay, why Bitcoin is superior and should be the primary means of one saving, the fruits of their labor in. So anyway, getting deeper into 2020 and 2021, following Saylor coming onto the scene, I've since just been consuming all the Bitcoin books, podcasts, etc., kind of living in this world. But as you know, it could be, being a Bitcoiner and having these ideas can be extremely intellectually isolating. It's not like everyone just has this huge friend network in their circle in whatever town they're living in or in their neighborhood of people that understand these concepts and see the world through a Bitcoin or sound money lens. And that's really where I started in 2024. I said, like, I was actually in 2023, so I was living in Amsterdam, and the Bitcoin Amsterdam 2023 was in town. And I remember I was working New York hours. So I'd work from like 3 p.m. to midnight, 1 a.m. And I didn't take vacation days from work to go to Bitcoin Amsterdam, and it was the conference like 10 minutes from my house. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like, why didn't I go to this? And so I was like, okay, 2024. That's the year I need to get out there and start meeting other Bitcoiners in real life, and that's really made a huge difference. Not only in just greatly expanding my knowledge base and getting connected with a network of other Bitcoiners to kind of discuss these ideas with, but also, I mean, I'm already convicted in it, but it really does help. It really does help. So anyone that's watching this, that's maybe on the fence about going to one of the conferences, if you have one in your area, or maybe a short flight, I'd highly recommend it. So since that point, I've been getting more ingrained into the Bitcoin world. I was out in Europe, actually in Texas right now, and I've attended a lot of the European-based conferences. I'll probably be doing some more of them in the United States, and then And yeah, I mean, getting to this point, I've left my corporate job or exited the corporate world in April of this year, and I've more or less been dedicating my time to Bitcoin.
This is amazing. And there's like so many things in there. I hope I remember all of them. But the first thing I want to start with is actually the last thing. And the first thing you said is that you quit everything for Bitcoin. And I think people don't get how big this is, because you have a world, you have an income, you have a job, you have something going on in the not Bitcoin world. I don't want to label everything as the fiat world, because there are jobs that have nothing to do with Bitcoin, but also nothing to do with fiat, if you know what I mean. But you've worked in the not Bitcoin world, and now you're like, I'm completely out of that because I want to spend more time thinking and working and connecting in Bitcoin. Like, why was Bitcoin so compelling that you not only went into Bitcoin with your financial energy and invested in this community and invested in this asset, but also with your time and your energy actually went in full time, or like however you do it, with your energy into Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's I mean, people like yourself understand this, but most people in the outside world don't. If the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the more that this consumes your mind. And I've heard you say it before, and it's so true. No one knows everything about Bitcoin. You can't. It's impossible, because it touches every facet of life. Um, and yeah, I mean, if we are correct in this, and we are, and Bitcoin becomes the next world reserve currency, that is the single most important idea that's being discussed in our time. For the time period that we happen to be born in, to grow up, to be the age that we are as adults, what other idea is more important than fixing the money? And I'd argue there isn't. So if you do believe that, then your mind just your mind just gets engulfed with this, and it just becomes like the only thing you could think about. It's why we can't shut up about this. It's why you're doing podcasts multiple times a day on this. It's why we go to the conferences. It's why we talk to random people about it. Or if you're at the part, you become the Bitcoin guy in your maybe non-Bitcoiner social circle. I mean, you tone that down relative. Maybe you do that a lot at the beginning, and then you're like, okay, you chill out on it. But it's it's. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, to answer that question, I would say, because if you really get it, you feel like it's a moral imperative, and everything else just feels so less significant relative to what the problems that Bitcoin can solve in the world, and the impact that it can make on individuals' lives. Um, and at the smallest level, at the smallest level, we have what is, I mean, being born in the time of Bitcoin, what, 16 years in, I mean, this is the first time mankind has come in contact with the hardest form of money that's ever existed, money perfected. And we're living through that transition, where we're still living in a dominant fiat based world, where ultimately where this goes, transitioning into a hyper Bitcoinized world. And we just happen to be in the middle. And I just think that there needs to be more people out there who do have a good grasp on this, who can explain it, to provide education to people. So uh, it's I mean, and to elaborate that on as well, in terms of like why I'm not just going to another fiat based job or something, which I easily could. It's like and even at my last job, the last, like, several years, I'm there and I'm doing stuff, but my mind is on Bitcoin. So, ultimately, for me to be fully present, for me to give my maximum amount of energy and capacity that I have to give, it has to be something that's mission aligned, and that can only be found in the Bitcoin world.
That's incredible, and I feel that, and I have that theory where most people buy Bitcoin because of the price, for getting rich. some short, some long term. And most people that work in Bitcoin do it because they bought Bitcoin, they get the mission, and they know Bitcoin might just change the world. And they want to be part of that revolution. They want to be not just like, there's those 3 pillars on Bitcoin. The first pillar is the wealth pillar. You increase your purchasing power when you adopt Bitcoin. The second pillar is freedom. All of a sudden, a bank can no longer shut your account down. All of a sudden, you can transact with anyone, and all those freedoms aspects if you have self-custody. And then the third pillar is the pillar that you are just getting into with the community. I mean, you are getting into since 2024 and since longer when you are involved in the community. But this is the community, the culture, the meetup, the conferences, all those things. And I think if you only have Bitcoin on an exchange, you only get this one upside. So if you have it in self-custody, you get the second one also. But if you have Bitcoin in self-custody and you get running your node and all those things, and then you also are involved in the community and actually engage with it and work in it and provide value, services, products, whatever for the community, you are in the best place to either go to hero or zero, depending on how Bitcoin is doing. So I said it multiple times. I lined up my entire life in a way where if Bitcoin is successful, I'm majorly successful. All the podcasts will be way more successful. All the products and services and the companies I'm building, they will be way more successful. But if Bitcoin goes to shit, I have nothing. I have skills maybe that I acquired, but I've put everything on Bitcoin. And this is the most aggressive you can go in this revolution. And I tell everyone you should go there because I think we are right. And if we are right, the upside is tremendous. This is the egotistical view on it, but there's even a holistic view, like a bigger view on that, where not only you gain massively from being involved in a community, but you're also doing something good for the world. I truly believe that. I mean, everyone claims that, but I truly believe a Bitcoin standard is objectively better on an ethical level than a fiat standard. Like, I have examples to make people know about that, but this is like I'm objectively liking a Bitcoin standard more than a fiat standard. Maybe I just give this brief example. If you can wake up tomorrow as any person and it's randomly designed, and you might be Jeff Bezos or you might just be a guy in India in some slum with nothing. If you have no control over who you may wake up tomorrow, would you like to wake up in a Bitcoin era or in a fiat era? In the fiat era, if you wake up as Jeff Bezos, it's amazing. Like, you have a great life. But if you wake up as Jeff Bezos in the Bitcoin era, you're still doing amazing. Like, your life does not really change. But if you wake up on the bottom of the food chain, Bitcoin gives you the chance to work up. With fiat, it's very, very hard. You might not even be able to open a bank account. You might need to first earn the privilege to open a bank account. In the Bitcoin world, you can open a bank account like literally day one. You just need some sort of electronic device that is somehow connected to the internet, and you somehow get to it. So, very long story. This is why I personally am involved in Bitcoin, and I think that's why everyone should be involved in Bitcoin, because you get the wealth, you get the freedom, and you get the culture and community and the mindset around that. And I just love that you also took that step, and I love seeing more and more people taking this step.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you hit it on the nail on the head with the 3 pillars. And not everyone's going to be like that, and we don't need everyone to be like that.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast, and if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.